Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning, or welcome back to Faith in Our Hometown. Our attempt at having a friendly conversation about where faith and our culture kind of meet in a kind of an intersection here in the greater Joplin area. This morning, my guest is going to be Rick Wiseman, who works with the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Joplin. Rick is going to be talking with us a little bit about what NAMI is, what they do, because I think this is one of those topics that really reaches across all religious barriers, and that's the mental health of all of our members and all of the family members of our members. There's a lot that we need to take care of in terms of keeping everybody happy and healthy and whole. And certainly mental health and emotional health is part of that great big mystery that keeps us together. So we're going to be back talking a little bit about the National Alliance on Mental Illness and what they do for us and for all the others in our community. We'll be right back after this Mercy Minute.
I thought about bariatric surgery because the struggles I've had with my weight all my life. Every time I tried a new fad diet or a new diet, it seems like I always put back more weight on than I lost. And then of course that leads to a very downward cycle of being very hard on yourself, being very depressed. It's been amazing. I mean, it's been shocking. I feel like a whole new person, inside and out. It's just not with the surgery, but also with the care team and everything involved. The dietitian, the therapy, and everything has been, I feel reborn. I'm able to do things that I want to do. I'm not held back by my weight. I'm not held back by my depression. I'm not held back by the emotional weight and physical weight I was carrying around. I feel free. I feel like I can do anything.
Welcome back. Again, my guest this morning is Rick Wiseman with the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So, Rick, tell us a little bit about what NAMI is and what NAMI does. That's the affectionate term we use for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So tell us who we are and what they are doing, and then tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, first of all, my wife and I got involved with NAMI. We have a son who is mentally ill, and he has been since he was 2 years old.
Okay.
And as he progressed in life, he finally found something that worked for him besides medication. He got involved with NAMI, and he started going to support groups.
Good.
And he came to us one day and he said, well, you guys need to get involved in it. So we went to support groups, and then you walk in the door and they grab you and you can't get away.
Right.
So,
no good deed goes unpunished. There you go.
Then we became members, and finally Carol and I are both on the board of directors, and a working board. We all wear several different hats and do whatever needs to be done to keep the program going. So it's a great thing because 1 in 4 Americans will suffer a bout with mental illness at some time in their lives.
I think many people would be surprised by that statistic, but it really is very prevalent and affects most families at some point in time or another.
Very true. Probably the best definition of mental illness would be that because we're all a little, given days we're a little bipolar, or we're a little this or a little that. And but if it doesn't last a long period of time, if it doesn't affect your work life, your social life, anything like that, you're just an individual living their life. But when that illness gets to the point your brain has misfired, it doesn't really want to do anything that you want it to do, and it affects your social life, you can't go to work. You might be afraid to walk out the door of your house. On a good day, you'll get to the door. The rest of the time, you sit in a chair. It affects your work life. It affects your family life, your friends, your social life, and really robs and drains a person of the will that they have.
Yeah. So many times, I guess the way I've often, talk people through that is, it's just like anybody has situational depression.
Sure.
Everyone has a situational day when they're feeling a little, bouncing between, different emotions and moods and those kinds of things. But it's when those situations become chronic and start really causing other issues in your life in terms of functionality and just being able to do all the things that you need to do in order to get through your daily life. And again, 1 in 4 people is going to have some time at some point where they're going to be dealing with those things, where it's going to become more than they can handle by themselves.
Sure.
And that's why I think it's really important for organizations like NAMI to exist and to be around to help people in that context. So tell us about NAMI. Tell us about what, like, say, some of the major things that you do, your major initiatives.
Okay. Well, we provide support, education, advocacy, and recovery for those suffering mental illness, for their families, for their friends. It comes, for example, our consumers, as we call those who are suffering a mental health condition, our consumers have a support group on every Tuesday night where they come in, sit down, visit with each other. It's kind of a roundtable discussion because they're all in the same boat, and many have the same illnesses. We have in our groups from top to bottom with schizophrenia possibly being high, but in fact being less than 1% of the population, and to depression, to all levels of depression. We have classroom programs for families and friends. We have a program called NAMI Basics for the families of children. We have a program called Family to Family, which is a 12-week program for the adult children and families of a person suffering mental illness. We talk about the brain, we talk about medications, we talk about their lives in general, how you deal with them, how you talk to them, everything that you can do to make it work.
So let me just clarify here. So you've got some support groups, for example, the people who are actually experiencing those issues themselves firsthand, but you've also got those for the other people who care for them and the people who love them, families, so that the families can understand what's going on. Give us an idea of, like, say, how many people right now do you have involved in who are actually suffering through those things themselves, and how many do you have that are surrounding them and helping them through in that way? So give us some ideas of, like, how big your programs are.
Well, we're grassroots, we're small, and mental illness is something that most people don't want to be involved in until it happens in their family, and then they get behind the program. A typical consumer support group at this time of the year will be about 10 people. You get into fall and winter, life settles down after the summer, and we'll be up to 20 people.
So in other words, during this whole time. So now we're right now in this period between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right.
And so the numbers are up, is what you're telling me right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because many times the holiday times are very stressful for folks who experience some challenges in this regard. Why is that?
Well, probably one thing would be the economic situation of the holidays. Another reason would be the peer pressure, the pressure of friends to celebrate and to go have a good time. There's just a lot heaped on people. And interestingly, I have a friend who has a son with mental illness, and they have a large family like ours, and they have family parties, and my friend and his son devised a code so the son would go with him to the family parties, but when he was ready to leave, he was ready to leave. So Dad said, well, when you can't take all of the hustle and bustle anymore, just give me a thumbs up. And at that time, I'll make our excuses and we'll leave. And the difference in that went from him not going to any family affairs at all to going and staying and enjoying quite a few.
Yeah, and then he can get Dad can go back if he wants to later and do those things, but it takes the pressure off. how would some of our listeners, what should our listeners be aware of if during this holiday time, they think that some of their folks are struggling or doing those things? What might we do to be a little bit more attuned to that?
The elephant in the room is suicide.
Okay.
And in the holidays especially, around times of great value to people, birthdays, things like that, it rises up, and we have a lot of suicide in the Joplin area. We have lost in 2014 49 people in our four county area to completed suicide.
Almost to the point of almost one a week.
Yeah.
It's pretty striking.
And Missouri is number 17 on the list of suicides completed, and we'd like to be 60 even instead of state 50,
Yeah, exactly.
So, but if someone is suggesting that they might complete suicide, you need to just be real personal with them and be real bold, and you need to say, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about committing suicide? The myth is that makes them go complete suicide, but it does not. It opens the avenue for them to talk to you about it. From there, you need to ascertain if they have a plan. If they have a plan, for example, I think I'll shoot myself. Do you have a gun? As a matter of fact, I do. Do you have any bullets? Yes, I have them. You need help there immediately. You need help immediately. And probably one of the most difficult things you'll ever do in your own mind is get someone help, but you could very well save their lives.
Sure. Just by being a little bit more sensitive and not, just downplaying it because you don't quite know what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because again, there are resources in the community, such as yourselves, or a hotline, or some of those kinds of things, or even if somebody's talking that serious about suicide and has a plan, you pick up the phone and call somebody and try to help figure it out. How are we going to get this person some help? But ignoring it is not the answer.
No. People think that ignoring it is the right way to go, but it's not.
What sometimes makes people feel a little bit more awkward, or and again, I understand, having worked in helping professions now for many years. I've got a lot of training. I can at least sense those things out, and then I know where to go. But this becomes a little bit more scary for someone who's never dealt with somebody who is suicidal before, somebody who's not made any gestures or conversation about it, and all of a sudden it's just like, what am I going to do now? And again, I think that the reason why I see NAMI as being so valuable in our community is again, you're out there talking with people about some of these things, so that when that happens, they at least have a list of phone numbers.
Yes.
They at least have a list of people that they might be able to talk to. Because even if it's not suicide, it can be other kinds of conversation, depression, those kinds of things.
Yeah. A lot of peer pressure, a lot of, and you know what? Stigma is probably the other big dog. I said elephant earlier, so this will be the gorilla or the dog in the room. But
I'm the only one here with you. You keep referring to all these animals, but go ahead. I'm just worried for.
You think about that. The stigma causes more difficulty than anyone could ever imagine, because read an interesting article, and the name of the article was "People Don't Bring You Food When You're Mentally Ill." And it was a story about a young lady in college who broke a leg, and all the neighbors came bringing food, casseroles and meats and everything. Later on, the young lady suffered a bad case of depression and was hospitalized. And the title came from the fact that everybody ignored them. So.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back. We're talking with Rick Wiseman, who's from the National National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Joplin. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that organization and some of what they do. But this is Faith in Our Hometown. We'll be right back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, again, welcome back. I'm with Rick Reisman this morning, who is for the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Joplin. We were just talking a little bit about, some of the things to watch for and some of those kinds of things, and the stigma that sometimes is attached to that. Yes. You were telling the story about the young woman who wrote the article on the fact that, when she broke her leg, all kinds of care. But when all of a sudden she came down with depression, everybody was just like, I don't know what to say, so I'm not going over there. I'm not going to do anything, all those kinds of things.
And no food.
I think that, that's one of those basic things. And this is one of those things that church community and church families are really good at. And that is, reaching out and doing those comforting things at a certain moment in time. And food is always one of those ways that we do that as a church community. Somebody dies, we take food. Somebody's born, we take food. Somebody, is, having a difficulty, we take food. Many of our religious services are based around food. And certainly, I guarantee you here in the Joplin area, potlucks would be one of those things that people would compete with each other over. Yeah. But the deal here is that those acts of comfort are really what, so many people need. And I think it's a great reminder to us that in that context, that just the physical illnesses are not the only ones that sometimes we just need to show a little care and concern about. So not to make those people invisible, not to make the families feel like they're in this by themselves. All those kinds of things in terms of caring and concern, the same things that the same ways and the same ways that we go about sharing that care and concern is important. So tell us a little bit about some of the specific programs that NAMI does. Because I know you've got some training programs and some of those things, and I think they're really fascinating. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of those, Rick?
Well, first of all, everything we do is free. We are funded by grants, we're funded by donations, and so this is how we get our money to carry on our programs. We have classroom programs. We have a program starting on January 2nd called Family to Family, and it's a 12-week program. It is evidence-based, meaning that the program came from research and information that was available, and it is for the adult children and family members, spouses, friends of a person with a mental health condition. We talk about the brain, we talk about medications, their effect, good and bad. There's a two-edged sword with medication because it might make you feel better, but it might make you gain 30 pounds, We talk about the way that you can talk to a person who is suffering mental illness and deal with their situation. We talk about the fact that it's okay to lay out ground rules. If you're going to live in this house and we're going to help you with your problem, then you need to follow certain rules.
Right.
You learn how to negotiate, because negotiation in life is an important thing. Negotiating with the mentally ill is very, very important.
And very difficult.
Yes, very much so.
But still just as important.
And so this is our premier program. We have classes. We like to have them to be 10 to 20 people, but in quiet times we've done it with 2 people. Another program that is starting in February is called NAMI Basics, and it's a 6-week program that is set up for the parents, families of children with mental illness. And in that we deal with many of the same things that we talked about in Family to Family, but we get into the fact of an individualized education program, IEP, so that their problems can be dealt with at school. We have some schools in the area that are great at it, and we have some schools that are not. If you have a family member, a friend, a grandchild, whatever, who has a problem, the school will help set up that program, and as much as Tommy can't be ready for school when the bus comes at 8, but at 9 o'clock he's ready to go, and there's a taxi waiting for him to take him to school. You know, this is very, very important. There, the families learn again what's going on. Why does he cut up all the newspaper in the house? One of ours, when our son was young, was that when he would talk to you, he would do this. And finally we figured out that that was a television, and he was looking at life through television. And it didn't solve anything, we didn't do anything about it, but it did help us understand
What was going on?
what was going on.
Yeah.
Other programs that we offer, we have a program that is called NAMI Homefront. It's brand new, and it is designed for the spouses and adult children of our veterans returning from a war zone or returning from service. PTSD is rampant. And the family member comes home and a car drives by on the street and has a backfire, and our member dives behind the couch. We learn why. We help you understand. And again, communication is so important. We teach you how to talk to them and communicate with them. Very, very important. We have 12 programs that we offer. Some for consumers. One is called In Our Own Voice. We teach them how to come and sit with a group of people and tell their story and accompaniment to a videotape of other people. And they tell their story, their highs, their lows, everything about their mental illness. And the great thing about it is they can actually make a little bit of money doing that. Because a lot of the folks dealing with mental illness have no income, or they have a small income. And in Missouri, if you are an adult without any kids and you make more than, I think, $3,300 a year, and you can do the math on how much that is a month, you can't get Medicaid, and you have to make at least $11,000, I think, as a single person to be able to qualify for the discounts on health care. And I know a lot of people who work hard, 2 or 3 jobs, they make maybe $8,000 a year, can't get Medicaid. Their kids do. The kids are covered under Medicaid. They can't get Medicaid, and they can't qualify for the subsidies. And I have a friend who is a part-time bookkeeper, and she made $11,000. And she was, the price that she was quoted was $1,000 a month. She has some health problems. So she would pay out of an $11,000 income, $12,000 a year for health insurance. You know, we need some parity somewhere.
Yeah, we certainly have some challenges in that regard with how to, you know, especially for the people who are falling between the cracks.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and that you know that certainly concerns me as a pastor. You know, it's just like you know, I mean, I you know, I understand. You know, we're big on fiscal responsibility here in the state, and I understand fiscal responsibility. But one of the reasons why we exist as a society is to take care of some of the people that are falling between the cracks.
That's exactly right.
And so, and I think this does affect in a very strong way, especially people with mental illness. And it just seems like we've done a lot of cutting of budgets that would do a lot of that care that would come for some of that. And so you guys are all grassroots.
We are.
Don't receive any money from the government.
No.
Okay. You know, you run some great programs. So again, I want our viewers are watching, and some of those programs are, you know, sound like, oh my gosh, I'd love to know more about what's going on with my cousin, or I'd love to know what's, you know, where I'm worried and I don't even know who to talk to. And, you know, so how would they get in touch with NAMI?
Well, we have recently moved, and we're located at 1601 South Wall in Joplin, a big old stone church, and it has a sign out in front that says Faith Fellowship. and a gentleman has purchased it. He's remodeling it into a community center, and we have leased space in the back part of the building, and our entrance is on the south side of the building. We try to have someone in the office from 1 to 4 Monday through Thursday, but we're a volunteer organization, so sometimes that doesn't happen.
Now, like for example, so if they typed in NAMI on their search engine or said that into their phone, would that come up here in Joplin?
Yes.
Okay.
NAMI Joplin.
NAMI Joplin.
NAMI Joplin.
Okay, so NAMI Joplin. We
Right.
got that. All right, so they can get you that way. Give a phone number here too, just to be sure.
Phone number is 417-781-6264, which spells NAMI.
781 NAMI,
slick, yeah.
6264. Great, because those are really important, in terms of if anybody wants to access any of these programs, anybody that wants to access those things for you. Well, we're about out of time. We'll be right back after this Mercy Minute. Stay tuned.
Find out how a Mercy doctor can take care of you. At Mercy, your life is our life's work. Quality, safety, and an exceptional patient experience. Mercy is grateful to be recognized as one of the top 15 health systems in the United States. At Mercy, your life is our life's work.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning for Faith in Our Hometown. Our guest this morning was Rick Wiseman from the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Joplin. And again, if you want to access some of their services, or even if you want to volunteer, because they can always use, all of these organizations in town can always use volunteers and that help. You can go to namijoplin.org, or just put NAMI Joplin in your search engine and you'll get that information. And again, you could also call 781-NAMI, all right? That's how you get in touch. But again, for us as a people who care about each other, as a community that tries to interact with one another and support one another, mental illness is one of those quiet things that's in our midst that we need to continue to try to care about one another, that we can continue to try to work with one another. And so, whatever we can do to support one another in all kinds of health, and especially in mental illness, we want to do it. Again, we thank you for joining us this morning. Come back next week for Faith in Our Hometown.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.